Everyone loves fairy tales, by which I mean some people love fairy tales. It's just that everyone sounds better, just as it sounds better to say, nobody played with me, rather than when I was in the playground, some of the children refused to obey me. Fairy tales tell of adventure, adversity, courage, and love. But once the tale is told, all we know of our heroes and heroines is that they lived happily ever after. But surely there must be more to it than that. Ever after is a long time to be merely happy. What are our heroes and heroines doing now? How do they feel about the fantastic events that they encountered? What lessons have they learned? And if they could go back in time, would they do the same things again? Does life seem boring now in comparison, or are they relieved they no longer have to keep their eyes peeled for poisonous apples, fearsome dragons, uncomfortable peas, etc.? For the past few years, the curious among you have been asking these questions and sending them to me, Cecily, the senior secretary of the Fairy Tale Fan Club. I then pass on these communications to the fairy folk concerned and await their replies, which I then forward back to the relevant parties. If necessary, I add my own comments and clarifications. How, you might add, did I ascend to the prestigious rank of senior secretary of the Fairy Tale Fan Club? It's a fascinating story, and I'm delighted you definitely asked me about it. You see, being a coward myself, I've always admired heroism. And though I have nothing but high regard for those square-jawed types who rush in with no concern vis-à-vis their personal safety, I'm afraid to say that if I saw a dragon attacking a mythical kingdom, I would not reach for my smiting sword. Partly because I do not own a sword, and partly because I have always been a vocal opponent of smiting. I'd be more likely to retreat to a reasonable distance, fortify myself with a herbal tea, and write a strong letter of complaint. Dear Mr. Dragon, I must urge you in the strongest possible terms to refrain from breathing fire over my fellow townsfolk. Not only is there significant risk of burning, the smell is sulfurous, and the resultant light pollution unsightly. Yours in expectation of a swift response, etc., etc. But here's the nub of the thing. Many of these princes and princesses who wouldn't think twice of thrashing a troop of three-headed beasts come out in rashes of the deepest and prickliest purple at the very prospect of writing so much as a postcard. Whereas I, who never met a three-headed beast to whom I would not defer, like nothing more than swiftly filling a few sides of lightly lined parchment. When it comes to correspondence, I'm in a class of my own. Give me a form, and I will not quiver. I'll plow through a pile of pamphlets and not once go outside the box. Ask me to scan something, and I'll skip to my office nook with the giddy abandon of an unleashed puppy. In that sense, there is no hero greater than I. As my mother would say, to be highly organized is to be truly alive. And also, stop climbing that tree, it might explode. Before long, and throughout the land, tell was told of my administrative mastery. I was headhunted, not literally, to become personal assistant to the, and I quote from his email, Prince who woke Sleeping Beauty's brother. When I replied, I pointed out that this made it sound like he, the brother, was woken by the prince, or worse, that he was the prince who woke the brother of Sleeping Beauty. However, the unhelpful ambiguity could be rectified were we to change his sign-off to the brother of the prince who woke Sleeping Beauty. Needless to say, the prince's brother was very impressed by my fastidiousness, as well as my ability to make grammatical accuracy so much fun. The prince's brother was, in all respects, the second bravest and most blankly handsome man I'd ever met. But he was absolutely terrified of admin. He didn't even have a name. Try applying for a parking permit when your name and address are the other prince, the big castle somewhere in fairyland. It wasn't long before I was managing both princes' post bags. Then, after successfully helping Sleeping Beauty set up her online wellness empire, I was recommended to Cinderella, who recommended me to her Prince Charming, who mentioned me to some elves, and, well, you see how it works. I found myself answering so many letters that I thought it might be easier to set up a single postal address to handle all the enquiries. Please add the below to your files. Cecily, Senior Secretary of the Fairy Tale Fan Club, P.O. Box 1, Fairyland Avenue, Fairyland, far, far away. As well as fan letters, I also handled many of the communications within the magical kingdom itself. Indeed, I have been known to share a little of my own wisdom when so requested. Yes, old CC has a few fans himself. So, if you want to know more about your favorite fairy tale characters, you've chosen the right book. And if, once you've read this book, you're left with any unanswered questions, why not write to me? Who knows? Maybe your letter will appear in the next volume. Cecily.